So on my hand here are interconnects. These are 4.4mm Pentacon interconnects, and I want to share you something I found out today about interconnects and amplifiers, especially for the Mass Kobo 475. Now, I'm not going to talk about cables improving the sound quality. In fact, I'm not a believer that cables improve the sound quality in any significant way. If there's an improvement, it's going to be really slight till I find it's negligible. There are better ways to spend your money, and cables are probably not the way. However, you should buy a good cable, because a cable that disconnects, spoils, or doesn't work is irritating. So spend a bit more to have something durable and nice is always a nice touch. But don't spend like $1,000 for it. I mean, don't believe in that. That said, today, these are interconnects, 4.4mm. One of them is from the OEM. This is a custom one, so it's a bit long. You can see, I mean, it's a really long cable. Now, this custom interconnect, I built this for like 40 plus Sing dollars. So it is, I would say, it's not really expensive. Now, this is the DDHIFI. This is the BC44B, I believe. This interconnect here costs about 130 Sing dollars. Now, you may be wondering, 130 dollars. I mean, if you convert to US, it's about $90. This one in US is about 80 USD. It's a bit expensive, but there was a certain property that I was looking for this particular cable here. I can't find any description for other cables, so I'm very wary about it. So I just went ahead and purchased it. So in this video, I will tell you about what I'm looking at. So this is the Mass Kobo 475, and if you have seen my previous video, I said that it produces a sound, electronic sound, that is really irritating, and it's only something that appears in very sensitive IEMs. And I also noticed that it only appears in single-ended mode. In balance mode, it does appear, but it requires a lot of volume, and I can demonstrate in this video here. So let me demonstrate to you using the interconnect here, and we'll show you about it. So I'm just not going to on very loud. I'm going to like on half the volume here. It doesn't matter, you know, what is the setting on the thing here. Let me give a here. Then let me let you guys hear it too. Let me let you guys hear it. So I'm actually tapping on the screen. You can hear the tapping on the screen. So this is what happens, you know, you can hear this electronic sound that is coming from a DAP, which is, you know, a very good device already, all very well shielded, and it doesn't even use external power supply, but you can hear this sound. Now, it affects the single-ended the most, but if you do plug in a balance, it affects lesser, but it does still have the effect. Let me get you a balanced one. Now, this is the Lashow S12. Same thing at full volume. At full volume, it's a lot softer. Let me bring it up to the mic. You can probably hear it's very soft here. Now, I think you pretty much understand what I'm showing you. It's electronic sound generated from the screen capacitor, and as I tap it, it generates this noise. And you notice that on the balance connection, even though it's at full volume, which is way louder, it is a lot softer. So in balance mode, you really cannot hear this in normal volume. I mean, to play the Lashow in normal volume, right, and I was to power this to full, it's about this volume. I mean, this is pretty much really loud. At most like that, you know, you will never use this part, and you cannot hear this electronic noise until you reach angel like this for the balance. And if you are talking about single-ended, you can hear it even at this level. I mean, you must not forget that in-ears go into your ears and they stick it in, and they are the only sound. So you really can hear it. Well, for the balanced one, you have to go all the way to the end to actually hear it, but it exists, right? So I've been investigating what's the cause of this sound. Obviously, balance and unbalanced. The balance have lesser, the unbalanced has more. So my guess is that it has something to do with the ground. Right? It has something to do with the ground. I mean, that's the only difference. I mean, balanced earphones do not need ground because they are left, right. They don't have a ground signal. While unbalanced earphones have a left, right, ground. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, hard to describe to you, but that's really how earphones and headphones work. They have a left, right, and a ground signal that is shared between two sides if you're using unbalanced. If you're balanced, it's left plus minus and right plus minus, positive, negative, positive, negative. And that is all cabled into your Pentacon. There is no ground signal if you actually look at a Pentacon connector, this is a Pentacon connector, there is actually no wire connected to the last sleeve for a earphone. Only the first 4 parts, because this aligns to the old 2.5mm TRRS, which is also same, left, right, but you can kind of tell that it's something to do with ground, and I don't know where it comes from. So, when I went online and read that some cables are not connected to ground, and actually there is this diagram from Mass Kobo that shows you a 4.4mm cable that is supposed to be properly wired. And they also show you that if you don't have a ground, you are supposed to connect that particular cable, have a offshoot, and connect to one of your headphone ports. This is a really weird thing, but you are supposed to connect to one of your single-ended ports to get the ground signal. And that is supposed to make it work. So I went out and find a cable that is properly wired. So I'm worried that this is not properly wired. So I went out to go and find a cable that's properly wired. And let me show you the difference. So this is the DDHIFI cable. And same thing, I plug it in. Now, let me plug in my single-ended cable. I on the full volume. Not going to on the sound, I think it will blow the earphones up. Now you can hear that there's totally no hiss and hum. No hiss and hum. So you can see that actually this Mass Kobo is absolutely silent once the cables are proper. And this is due to grounding, and this is where I wanted to show you guys the real thing of this video here. This is a voltmeter. It's to test whether 2 points are properly connected. At least that's the way I will use it. So let me use a cheap one first. So this is my OEM cable. If I touch the tip, there is sound. If I touch the third ring, if I touch anywhere, you see there's no sound, only the third ring. Now if I was to touch the sleeve, no sound. The sleeve is not connected in this cable here. Now, same thing, let me touch the tip, third ring, and then sleeve. So the sleeve is actually connected. This thing has ground connection between the player and the amplifier. And really that's where the difference lies. And not only that, you actually can see that this cable is actually shielded. There's actually a shielding over the individual cables itself. And that's what they were selling out. There's a shield, there's a certain gauge to it, and it's actually supposed to be ground connected. So this is really the difference. This cable has one more connection and it has a shield. So that is really where the sound quality, or should I say the noise, lies. Now the thing is, how do I put it? I never believed that you should pay so much for interconnect. I always believe that we should get the cheapest possible one, but it's really hard. I mean, I have surfed the entire Taobao, the Chinese site, to find whether are there cables that specifically say that they are ground connected in Chinese, which is some Chinese word. And then whether is there a shield to the cable itself, and I really cannot find. Most of them show me such cables because actually traditional balanced cables do not have ground connections. What do I mean by that is that if you look at the say the 2.5mm, the 2.5mm is 2.5 to 2.5 and it's tip ring sleeve. There's no the fifth connection for ground. So there is no ground connection for the 2.5mm interconnects. So balance, at least for the purpose of interconnecting, never really had a ground. At least, for portable devices. So I think if you actually make the cable properly and connect the last ground element, then it solves the problem of the grounding itself. Now, I noticed that there are devices out there that do something like that. They will help you connect the ground to, let's say, a single-ended that you get the ground itself. Or some other cables that have one more shootout into a 3.5mm because some amps actually don't connect their ground to the balance port. Or some decks also don't connect their ground to the balance port, which is quite interesting. It took me a little bit of reading and research to really understand it, but they're just saying that ground connection doesn't always exist on a 4.4mm connection, be it in the cable like this case, or in the device itself. They may not actually build the ground in the sleeve region. So this is just a unique case where It so happens it matters. Now, if you're using imbalance, it really doesn't matter. But if you're using single-ended with very sensitive IEMs, it matters. If you're using balance with very sensitive IEM, it may also matter itself. So this is a case where if you can spend a bit of time and money to look for a cable with the ground connection. I do not know whether there are others that you can easily find, or unless you do it yourself. I mean, if you do it yourself, it will be very simple. It's going to be a very thick cable still though. You look at this cable, there's a difference between the cable here and the cable here because of the grounding cable. It's one more cable inside the main cable itself that will increase the thickness, that's for sure. And also the price. You know, to connect 5 small little wires in this small little tube here is actually quite effort and skill. Now, that's being said, you know, once again, I never believe that you should spend too much money on interconnects. I will actually scour the Chinese sites to see whether there are interconnects that meet this requirement without costing too much, and then maybe one day I'll share with you guys again. Now, I'll just say that if you are buying a standard 4.4mm interconnect and you're using pure balance, you can actually get it quite cheap, maybe 20-30 Sing dollars, which is like less than 25 USD. You can easily purchase a 4.4mm interconnect that's about 10 to 15 cm. This is a bit long, this is 20 cm. This will cost a lot more because there's a lot more cables here. But, you know, you can really get very affordable cables these days, so don't spend your money on expensive cables. But in this case, you just need one that has proper ground connection. If you are intending to use it with your amp and your amp have a single-ended, it may be affected. Now, I say maybe because it really depends on how they design the amp, what they do with it, whether they care about ground or not. And in this case, the Mass Kobo cares about the ground. So it's a unique situation. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this short little video on interconnects, the 4.4mm. And in this case, why maybe you should spend just a bit more to find something that actually will work on the long run for you. And that's why I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.